we have an EBOO machine or EBOO machine here at our center, and I know others that have them. And there are different types of machineries, and some call them EBO2 versus EBOOs. Do you work with one that has the UV light within it?
Yeah.
You do.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you talk about that? Because a lot of people know one or the other, or they even know something like H2O2, hydrogen peroxide therapy. If you put in the realm of oxidatives, I would say ozone, UV light, hydrogen peroxide, they're all up there. A lot of doctors in integrative functional world are using them. But this is interesting in that it's combining ozone with UVBI or UV light. Can you talk about that? Because I always wonder, what is the synergy there? And is it sometimes too much to add two of these at the same time?
Yeah, great question. So I had the pleasure of building my own EBOO machine starting 3.5 years ago, when I didn't even actually know what EBOO was. I had somewhere else seen this machine, and it were just in the very beginning stages, and it was a total like homemade gizmo. And I was like, okay, I got to build this, because I didn't actually know EBOO was a thing, even though I had been doing ozone therapy for over a decade. And so it took me 6 months to build my own machine. Some of my blood was on the walls, and because I had to experiment on myself, obviously. But once it was ready for prime time, I spent about a year in our office doing EBOO by itself. And then it was like, okay, you know what? I got to add on the UBI, because I had a standalone UBI machine or UV machine. UV light machine is basically what it is. And I was very curious what would happen, right? I didn't know. I knew the theory, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah. But at the end of the day, what would really happen in our patients was the question. The moment that I added the UV light to the EBOO, I would say unwanted side effects decreased, right? Because ozone is very much this some is usually good, but too much is bad, right? We can cause too much. We can rev up those detox systems way too much in some individuals. And it's just too much of a good thing, and that becomes a bad thing. And so it's always like, how do we serve our patients to the highest, right? And so again, very clearly, anecdotally speaking, once we added that in, voila. Again, those kind of the detox reactions or Herxheimer's reactions. Sometimes it would happen like maybe just the day after an EBOO therapy, though occasionally in some individuals it would roll into 1 or 2 or 3 days. Usually it wasn't longer than that, but then that window of Herxheimer's or too much detoxification was just shortened. And so I knew that, again, after, one case, an N of 1, right, is something, but after a while, a certain amount of N of 1 becomes actual data that we can go off of. And so very clearly, it was obviously synergistic. Now, I think oxygen and ozone, well, they both work at the mitochondrial level. Okay. And mitochondria, like main energizing producers in the body. ATP is kind of the currency of energy in our body. And oxygen especially works at the mitochondria. Ozone does a lot to help oxygen get to the mitochondria. And when we're talking about light therapy, one of the main things that drives the mitochondrial engine is light and different light wavelengths. And so I believe that at the mitochondrial level, it's just like, it's kind of taking kindling and adding oxygen literally to the flame to create more energy. There's a lot of other, it kind of sounds too good to be true, because oxygen, ozone, and light, they work on so many different levels of the body. I just spoke about the mitochondria, but it has a lot to do with the cytokines and the immune system, and different amounts of ozone work at different levels there, and the different light frequencies, because that's what UV therapy really is light frequency medicine, also work at different areas of the body.
Yeah.
And but there's clearly synergy there.
Well, I always thought there would, if you look at the, the oxidative reactive kind of, actions of all these things and combining them using ozone with light, with specific light can work together. And you see this a lot in medicine. You see like the HOCATs and, different types of things that start to put things together. But as we know, it's not like you could just jumble a bunch of things together and expect them all to play very well and the patient to just react to 20 different, types of therapies at once. So I do think there's something to be said about less is more, but synergy is great.
Yeah.
And I do find that is what you see with EBOO. So let's talk about, you have that synergy. What are the benefits of that synergy? What's going on within the body when someone receives an EBOO therapy that is acting in a healing way?
Yeah, so I spoke about the mitochondria.
Yeah.
And a huge part of healing is simply having enough ATP in your body, enough energy. When your body has enough energy, it knows how to heal. It's just the beauty of the human body that, frankly, doctors and science will never really catch up with, right? We're endlessly trying to understand more, but again, so much of disease is caused by either a toxicity, and that might be emotional toxicity all the way to too much pesticides, herbicides in the food type of toxicity, heavy metals, whatever it is, right? Too much toxicity or too little or a deficiency of certain nutrients. And when we can fix those, just bring them more into equilibrium, good things happen. And part of that bringing into equilibrium is having enough energy. And so that's like at the root, that's the biggest part that I see.
Yeah.